The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Glory to you, O Lord. Then they came to Capernaum, and on the Sabbath Jesus entered the synagogue and taught. The people were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. In their synagogue was a man with an unclean spirit. He cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, Holy One of God." Jesus rebuked him and said, "Quiet, come out of him." The unclean spirit convulsed him. With a loud cry came out of him. All were amazed and asked one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority? He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." His fame spread everywhere throughout the whole region of Galilee. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
There's two parts to our readings today. The first part is, what do we need to do to hear the voice of the prophet? First, we need to have faith in the Blessed Trinity, in Father, Son, and Spirit. We need to pray for God's help. St. Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, states, we need to ask our Father in heaven to adhere us to the word without distractions. Sometimes our whole prayer is learning how to rid the distractions so that we can be closer to Christ. We need to ask the Holy Spirit to open our ears to truly hear the message the prophet is giving. We need to ask the Holy Spirit to open our heart, our mind, and our soul to receive the message that we hear. How do we know the prophet? In Deuteronomy, God chooses the prophet from amongst the community. The deacons behind me were chosen out of the community they were in. Deacon Dan was from the St. Mary's community in Hammond, and he was chosen by God from that community to become a deacon. Deacon John was in Ellsworth before he moved a little northwest of us, and became a deacon here in our diocese. God calls us out of the communities we were in. I was in Rhinelander at St. Joseph's when I was called to be a permanent deacon. God will give the person he chooses the words to say. But that prophet needs to be in union with God, so they need to pray every day. They need to learn how to pray the scriptures. It's called Lectio Divina. God commands the listener to listen attentively. Let nothing else bother you. So if you're reading or listening to someone talk about the readings, turn everything else off. Put your phone in another room. Actually, turn it off and stick it in another room. Or you can be like Father Joe, leave it at home plugged in and come to work. They go, "We've been trying to text you." Well, you did text me. It was successful, just that my phone's at home. But it allows us, when we come, especially to adoration or to Mass, not to have any distractions, so we hear what God is calling us to do or to listen. In Mark's gospel, Jesus is the prophet of all prophets, like he's the King of Kings, right? And the Lord of Lords. He is the prophet of all prophets. He speaks with authority. Why? Because he is the Word. If you listen to John's gospel on Christmas, in the beginning, in verses, like the first verse and a little further, it says, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us." That's Jesus. He is the Word. He has the authority to speak. Jesus makes an absolute claim to the hearer, which was the best tradition of the prophets of old. We, the second part, we can be both hearer and prophet. Remember our baptism. In baptism, we are anointed on the crown of our head with chrism oil. Everybody goes, "Oh, that oil smells so good." It should. It's known as the fragrance of Christ, right? We are anointed priest, prophet, and king. Not ordained priests like myself and Father Anil, but we are priests because we are people of prayer. That's how we communicate with God, with Father, Son, and Spirit. We are also a king or a queen in some cases, right? Because we are heirs to the kingdom of heaven. Heaven is our inheritance. There's no earthly king on earth that can give you that. And all it takes is faith. And then we are called to be prophet, to proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ. Every single one of us, not just us who proclaim the words we hear from the homily, right? We are asked to go out as prophets and tell our story of faith to another. How you found God, or how God found you. It can go both ways, right? God is with us all the time. He's talking to us all the time. We just need to be attentive to what he's proclaiming. And he may ask you to step out of your comfort zone and share a piece of your story of faith. How you got where you got. Sometimes you share something about your life and it's an answer to someone's prayer and you have no idea you answered it. I just love that moment. You really helped me the other day. Oh yeah? I had no idea I did that. But that's God working through us because we are open to being a vessel for him. What do we do to hear the voice of the prophet? What do we really need to do to hear that voice? Who continues to call us to share our faith story with another.